Hello, you.
Hello, you.
Is this feeling that you're leaving starting to get real?
I think I'm trying to be really zen, but I'm on the verge of being transformed into a pile of wet Kleenex at this point. Just don't touch me off on anything that makes me cry.
Well, I mean, what is it that makes you feel maybe sad?
Oh, the people that I worked with, extraordinary people.
Don't worry, Carol Off is not going to cry, or at least not right now, but it's probably coming.
Hello again and welcome back. I'm Carol Off.
How could it not? 25,000 interviews can change a person. And yes, she says she's counted. And at a program like the 54-year-old radio show As It Happens, there are the intimate, wrenching moments paired with the beautifully ridiculous.
If you haven't laughed and cried, got angry, learned something, were surprised, all in the same show. If you haven't done that in 90 minutes, we've failed you.
Laughter has always been an As It Happens hallmark. From Barbara Frum talking to the possibly tipsy owner of the world's largest cabbage.
What did you feed the goddamn cabbage?
To Carol Off interviewing the man behind the infamous Bigfoot footage.
The moment I saw her, I just said, oh my God, they really do exist. Because to see is to believe with me, you know.
And why do you think it was female?
Well, the mammary glands.
Oh, she had breasts. Okay.
The whimsy, the studio have grown on her. She calls herself an indoor cat now who started as an outdoor cat.
I would argue that you're more than an outdoor cat. I think you're borderline feral. and that's how I sort of think of you, as this kind of desire to be out there completely covered in dust somewhere. And I'm wondering, like, where does that start? What was that bug that got in you?
I think I got hooked when just traveling abroad. This is like the 80s, early 80s. And I said, okay, I'm going to go on my own. I'm going to just sell whatever I have and get whatever money I can. And I'm going to fly to Pakistan. And I'm going to meet Benazir Bhutto and I'm going to interview her.
Did you have any reason to believe any of that would actually happen?
No, she was in jail at the time. Anyway, I arrived and realized right away that I'd made a serious mistake, that I was way in over my head. The plane I came in on was hijacked. And I was the only reporter, one of the three reporters. We were in the airport at the time. And we began to cover this live, not knowing what was going to happen next.
Police were pushing us back with their guns and screaming. A few times I was grabbed by the arm and thrown back, and we still persevered. And
eventually, it ended badly. The hijackers set off an explosion and people were killed. But the immediacy of that, the being able to cover that, to be there, and I thought it was transformative. So
the good thing about being in broadcast is that, your life, we have receipts for a life like yours.
Carol, quickly, did you see the evacuation of the wounded?
There was a cavalcade of ambulances running out of the area. One could see the people were lying on the tarmac, face down.
Carol, this is so useful. We thank you so much.
You're welcome, Barbara.
And you talked about getting up close to one of the police vehicles and talking to one of the hijackers who was face down on the ground.
Well, I climbed into the vehicle, actually, and wanted to know who he was and what he was doing. I had to find out what happened. Who were these people?
When I look at your career, and I look at sort of Bosnia and the Gulf War and these enormous moments, it occurs to me that, looking at it from my vantage point, of course Carol Off was there. Of course you were there. Of course a woman was there. But it wasn't always the way, and I'm wondering what generations now who see it as a given are missing.
At the time in the 80s, to demand that women should play these roles was called a radical feminist agenda. It's hard to believe now. There were very few women in the field. The CBC had a policy. Every news agency had a policy that women did not go into conflict zones or war zones.
Why?
Because, for two reasons. One, it would be dangerous for them as being women, just because they're women. See, why? You look surprised, right? Mm-hmm. But at the time, this made sense to them. The other thing is that and I was told this explicitly, that we would endanger the people we were with. We would be men. And that was the rationale. And so, no, we weren't going to be allowed to go. The warlords controlled every aspect of daily life here before the Taliban.
That, of course, changed. Karloff at the pointy end of creating that change. To see war cover it haunts. Her experiences in places like Afghanistan forged part of her identity. So too, skirmishes at the microphone.
There was no Harper war on drugs.
I'm asking you a question. Did you support the mandatory minimum sentences for people for as few as 6 plants going to prison?
I'm afraid I can't answer that question.
Demanding accountability, a Karloff trademark.
You had 3 days to find out if it was true or not, and you didn't.
No, I don't do that. I do the interview. I don't do the rest of it.
You do a lot of research. Do you
Yeah,
not
will
think
you
that
stop
things should be?
harping on that? Yes, I do a lot of research.
What worries her is a Canada where getting a straight answer is no sure thing. Access to information systems in Canada are notoriously slow and secretive.
The numbers of times we were told by politicians that we would never get another interview because we had challenged them. Everybody wants to get straight goods here. There is a feeling, all of us, journalists, public, that we're not getting it.
What Canada has experienced is connection. October 2014, the murder of Corporal Nathan Cirillo, who was standing guard at the National War Memorial. In the awful wake, Karloff reached out to the woman who reached out to Cirillo in his dying moments.
Spoke to him too, didn't
I
you?
did. I actually tried to speak to him the entire time.
What did you say to him?
I told him he was loved.
What instinct is that for somebody, saying, "Are you okay? What's going on? Do you want me to call somebody?" No, he's dying. She knows he's dying. And she wants him to know that he's loved, a complete stranger. And I said, well, why? Why did you want him to know he was loved? She says, because I knew that's what his family would want him to hear as he died. In recent weeks, when we saw what happened at the cenotaph with the protesters in Ottawa, and to see that desecration, the numbers of people who contacted me to say all they could think about was Barbara Winters holding this man's hand on those very steps. Just the embodiment of love and care for others, the recognition of that you are a citizen, and everybody is somebody that is part of you.
That observation is so very Karloff. A voice, part of the fabric of Canadian conversations. Easy to just expect it to go on.
If there is hesitation in you about leaving this jewel of a program, what is that hesitation?
The hesitation would be that I have a family here, and as it happens, and they have been extraordinary, and I don't know how to leave them, but I have to. Moving on.